A concept that Ninjago has toyed with since the show's inception is the ninja's broader notoriety or their familiarity within the general public. And I do think it's quite interesting because, of course, the ninja are the heroes of the realm of Ninjago, and in more recent years, the heroes of the Merged Lands. And the fact is that a lot of people do recognize the ninja for that very reason. But the show never really gives us an outright explanation on how famous the ninja truly are, so I want to dissect the show and show what kind of stage the ninja were at depending on the time of the show. Because being famous is certainly something that the ninja are, but at the same time you have to note that the ninja had to go through the natural steps of becoming famous within the land, and at what point were they achieving what kind of criteria. And that is what I want to answer today. Are the ninja truly famous within the land of Ninjago? At what point did they become famous? Where are they at now? And what actions did they take to actually get to the level that they are? Because I do believe it's quite interesting to note that they have certainly gone through a lot of different stages, but at what point did they do that? Now, to give a criteria on what I'm defining as fame, I have dissected it into 7 different stages with an optional 8th that I will be using throughout. And these are, in my opinion, the 7 stages of fame within Ninjago. Stage 1 is their more obscure instance where they weren't really known. The second one was their breakthrough moment when they started to get that notoriety and when the public realized who they were. Stage 3 is where they began to emerge, when they started to have more instances that gave them more notoriety. Stage 4 is where they had more of a mainstream recognition. When did the land basically acknowledge who they were? Their 5th stage is where they were at their peak. Stage 6 is where they remained for a while, or a plateau, where they were famous, but they never necessarily went up or down. And then the 7th stage is their legacy. The 8th stage that I will be using is also just called Infamy. I feel like a lot of people are going to realize where that is going to be used because there is 2 instances, but Infamy will be sprinkled out where it is needed. But those are the 7 stages of fame that I believe the ninja definitely went through throughout the course of the show. The first stage, like I said, is obscurity. This is where the general public just never really would have known them and the ninja had no reason to be famous. I believe that the pilots were of course the first instance of this. I mean, they collected the golden weapons, but they never actually encountered the general public at that point. And then come season 1, they of course never did anything between the seasons, and it was only when they were finding the Serpentine where they started to become known. And I will say, there is one specific episode that I believe started this. And that is the episode The Royal Blacksmiths. Of course, they entered into a competition to get their hands on the Fang Cup. And I will say, I do think this is actually where the ninja were first acknowledged by the public. They took stage and they performed Spinjitzu, which either people did not know whatsoever or they may have heard through rumor when it came to the first Spinjitzu master and his sons. So this is possibly the first time where it was really acknowledged that there were ninja around that actually had some sort of relevance, or more specifically, some sort of ability. Because you can tell they definitely were not known by the public before this point. I mean, episode 1, they go to Jamonokai Village to stop presumably Garmadon. And the fact is that the ninja turn up and they go to protect the citizens of Jamonokai Village, but they still continue to run and they still continue to hide, which is a distinct difference from later seasons where the public feels much more safe around the ninja. In this instance, they had no clue who the ninja were, so they had to hide away under fear of their own life. And it shows that the ninja were definitely not known, at least by the point of the start of season 1. But of course, even though I think that the 9th episode of the season is where the ninja were first acknowledged, I truly believe it was only until the Great Devourer the ninja were actually beginning to be known. I believe the defeat of the giant snake is what gave them that notoriety. Because in that episode alone, when Cole takes the news van to actually throw the Great Devourer, it's never actually referred to by name like they are in later seasons. The news anchorman actually just says, "Go Ninja Go," which means he didn't really seem to know the name of Cole, which in my opinion implies that he wasn't actually known. I mean, season 1 just has so many examples of the ninja not being known, so I do think it's safe to assume that it wasn't until the Great Devourer they were beginning to be known. I mean, another example from season 1, Cole's father didn't know that Cole was actually a ninja, and I feel like if they were famous, I feel like he would have put together the pieces. But obviously he didn't. So I do think it's safe to assume that they were in the first stage of obscurity until the end of season 1. But that is where they definitely moved into their second stage, which is their breakthrough moment. The defeat of the giant snake definitely did give them more of a notoriety within Ninjago City, and I do think it's more of a city-wide known when it comes to the ninja. I don't think they were known beyond the reaches of the city, but they were definitely known within Ninjago City. I mean, the best way to catalogue that is actually when they go off to the Dark Island. When they go to set sail and make their way over there, of course they're having their big departure, where the general public is found, and they've obviously got fans, and they've got people who absolutely adore them. And that is definitely where it begins to be more apparent that the ninja are beginning to be known. I mean, people know them by name, people know who they are, what they're about, and I do think that is a very big factor when it comes down to the infamy of the ninja. And I think ultimately speaking, it is showing that they are starting to be known. I mean, look no further than the episode The Day Ninjago Stood Still. You will note that when the ninjas say they're going to help everyone and get everyone out of the city, Gail Gossip on her broadcast refers to the ninja as their heroic ninja, which shows that they definitely are known within Ninjago City. But interestingly, I do think they get to stage 3 quite quickly, because their emergent fame definitely would have happened after the defeat of the Overlord. That is no longer more of a city-wide heroic moment and more of a worldwide moment. Of course, all of Ninjago was rescued by that time because of the ninja, and I do believe that kind of information would have spread out quite quickly. You can see that the ninja's knowledge is becoming more common. I mean, in the first episode of season 3, one of the kids do start listing off ninja vehicles, so it shows that the ninja's knowledge or the ninja's actions are definitely becoming more of a widespread knowledge. And I do think that's important to realize. If they're emerging more and more, it means that there are going to be more people taking more of an interest in them, and those kind of details will start making the rounds, such as stuff like the love triangle, and of course that's a whole nother thing. But the fact is that the ninja's actions, the ninja's behaviors, the ninja's knowledge, and everything that they are doing is becoming more commonly known between the citizens. And that is a byproduct of emerging fame. People become interested, people become curious, and I do think that is the ultimate showing that the ninja are definitely getting more and more notoriety. But the thing is that even though they're becoming more notable in that sense, of course, the byproduct of this stage is the fact that there are going to be more people who may potentially doubt them or may potentially not believe in them. And I mean, season 3 literally does show us that when they start to think that the ninja are actually against them, when they realize that the ninja are using power to defeat the Overlord when the city at large did not have it. Which shows that there are definitely clear doubts, which is what you get when ninja are becoming famous, or when anyone is becoming famous in that regard. You question their actions. If they're doing anything against that kind of idea that you have of them, it shows that maybe they shouldn't have actually been famous. And I do think season 3 is the perfect example of that. But of course, in the end, they dispel those rumors, and the ninja do gain more faith in the citizens of Ninjago, and vice versa. And I do believe their re-defeat of the Overlord, and in particular, the downfall of Zane, really shows the fact that the general public at large actually began to acknowledge them as who they truly were. And that, in my opinion, leads us into stage 4, which is the mainstream recognition. And I do believe there is one piece of evidence over anything that shows that this is truly where the ninja were at by the end of season 3, and that is the existence of the statue of Zane. Zane's statue, to signify the sacrifice of the Overlord, in my opinion, is the biggest indicator that the public were becoming more generally known when it came to the ninja. I believe that that is a full acknowledgement that the ninja truly were the heroes of the land of Ninjago, and honouring Zane in such a sense, in such a public area, in such a large sense, definitely shows that they have definitely become famous. And that is, in my opinion, the mainstream recognition that they are getting. It seems to be that there is not really anyone anymore that actually doesn't know who the ninja are. They're becoming household names. They're becoming someone that people will definitely recognize. And like I said, the statue, in my opinion, is without a doubt a sign of that being the case. But how long do they stay in the mainstream recognition? Because you can note that stage 2 and 3 go away quite quickly, but that is often the byproduct of the kind of fame that the ninja were occurring. But the fact is that I definitely think they stay in the mainstream recognition for a certain amount of time. I believe season 4 keeps them relatively in the same spot. I mean, of course, they get the public to help them at the end of season 4, but it's nowhere where we haven't seen the ninja already go, so they're hardly breaking new ground. And season 5, of course, they save Styx, and I do think that goes into the next stage when it comes to the ninja, but the fact is that they don't really do too much to really signify an increasing level of fame by the end of season 5. I will say though, season 4 does give us an instance of the ninja acknowledging that they can be famous. I mean, Jay does it in in particular with his game show. Of course, he introduced himself as Ninjago's most belovable ninja, which goes perfectly into where they were at this point in time. It doesn't change the level of fame that they are at, but the fact is that he is still acknowledging the fact that he is, by his own definition, Ninjago's most belovable ninja, which means he clearly is acknowledging that there is a level of fame to them, but it's still relatively where we're at already. But the problem with peak fame, of course, can come a downside to it, and this is where we're going to use the first instance of infamy, because, of course, in Season 6 they get accused by Notakon and the public turns against them completely. They completely hate the ninja by this point, and this is where we get a first instance, like I said, where the ninja may have had Famous in the wrong way. So they say the same for 2 seasons, but Season 6 is where it truly begins, and this is where I believe we get to stage 5, which is the peak of their fame. The ninja have gone more mainstream than ever. They have a show, they're doing movies, they're doing ads, they're doing everything, they're appearing on talk shows. They really have got that more wider appeal, and this is definitely where they are the most known. They're having magazines made about them, showing all their past things. They're having people on them at all times, tracking every single move. I mean, Season 6 literally shows us that the ninja couldn't move an inch without people knowing where they were. They wanted to simply go and stop Klaus, and all the people were acknowledging was the fact that they were riding dragons across Ninjago City. I think it goes without saying that the ninja were by far the most known at this point in time in terms of the show so far. I believe that this is where the ninja were truly being known for more than just being ninja, for being essentially celebrities. But that didn't stick around for too long, because after the point of Season 6 we never really get more of this ninja celebrity lifestyle. It seems to have been somewhat died down. They may have even taken a step back from it all, but obviously it is still there and is still very much acknowledged. But I do believe this is where the peak fame essentially was at its limit. Of course, though, those rumours get dispelled and they eventually clear their name, and I do think they remain in this instance of peak fame. Of course, after the course of Season 6, they stopped doing all the TVs and all the movies, they stopped doing all of it, but the fact is that they still did it, and they definitely were still known for that very reason. Because if they did essentially go back on the journey that they were on, it essentially does put them into the 6th stage that I said, which is their plateau. This is where they maintain the level of fame that they're at, but they never really do anything more exactly to get any more sort of fame. And I do believe ultimately, between Season 7 to basically Season 15, this is where they say. Season 8 they get acknowledged as the heroes of Ninjago, but it's not really anything more than what we're used to. Season 9 does the exact same thing, Season 10 also does it, and then by the point of the Wildbrain era, there is no particular instance of the ninja having this really well-renowned moment that really increases their level of fame. You could point out maybe Shintaro invited them into their palace, but the ninja were already famous enough to have that. The other thing you could point out is, of course, after the event of Seabound when Nia saved everyone at the start of Crystallize, you will note that people were honouring Nia's passing a year later, but that isn't really a significance when it comes to an increasing level of fame. It just kind of maintains the fact that they are the heroes of the world and they are known for that reason. So I don't believe there was any reason to put them anything above where they're already at. So I do believe they essentially hit a plateau phase throughout the entirety of the Wildbrain era, and that was until Crystallized, until where they had their other instance of infamy. Of course, they broke the law by all accounts, and it did turn the perception of the ninja against them. I mean, it goes without saying that doing crime is not exactly something that people like, so I do believe by all accounts the ninja were in another stage of infamy, and they definitely didn't help themselves. Remember, by this point in time, the ninja were gone for about a year because of the passing of Nia, so the ninja were probably having faith lost in them by the general public, to the point where the new ninja had to come to be, and definitely people were liking the new ninja. So it goes without saying that the ninja's absence definitely caused a slight dip potentially, but I still think the ninja were quite known because they still did everything that they did. But of course, in similar vein to Season 6, the infamy doesn't last long. They get their innocence back and they save Ninjago in the biggest way that we have ever seen. They united every single ally and they defeated the Overlord once more. And I do believe, even though they're still on a plateau, I do believe they're solidified where they were in the space of Ninjago. But then last but certainly not least, we get to Dragon's Rising, where the ninja were disappeared in the eyes of the public because they did everything they can to help people during the merge. They weren't seen for years by this point, and this is where they get to stage 7. And this is the point of their legacy. This is where they become legendary figures, and this is where they become essentially tales to younger kids. Even though they are no longer around actively saving the world, the fact is that the legend of the ninja will continue on, and we literally see that in Dragon's Rising in the first few episodes of Season 1. We see Lloyd encounter a tent that has paintings of him and the team, and when he asks what it was, the kids exclaim that it's their way of honouring the ninja, and they realise and they recall a story that they have been told about them. Lloyd gets told about how him and his team were saving the city and they were having fun while doing it, and they realise that the ninja are gone, and they start to theorise on whether or not they will actually ever see them again, and some of them believe they will, and some of them believe they won't, and Lloyd realises that their legacy lived on, and it makes him nothing but happy. And I think that's the biggest point above all else. As of the point of the merge and the merge lands coming to be, particularly in Season 1 of course, you realise that the merge lands tell tales of the ninja. It has become beyond the realm of Ninjago. When the merged lands became, you realise that the people who were now introduced to the people of Ninjago were being told about the ninja. We get to know that the ninja are being talked about, they're being honoured, they're being acknowledged. I mean, Zane Day literally exists. You realise that the ninja became more than just the heroes of the active world. They became legendary figures that everyone will honour from time to come, because they wouldn't be where they were at that point if it wasn't for the ninja. And I believe that's the point above all else. As of the point of Dragon's Rising, even after the point where the ninja are known to be returned and they're back in the land, you realise that they are known for more than just what they're actively doing. They're being known for their actions, and they're being honoured for those actions as well. And I believe that is why they're in the final stage of fame, which is they're being acknowledged for their legacy, and they're being honoured for it, like how they should be. So overall, I truly do believe that the ninja are at the most fame that they could be at the point of Ninjago. I believe they have done more than enough to really solidify themselves in the history of Ninjago, and I think they realise that themselves as of the point of Dragon's Rising, because the merged lands honour the ninja, and they respect, and they will continue to remember them. But do you agree with my placements of the stages of the ninja's fame? Do you believe they should be at a certain stage earlier or later than I have said? Do you think there's another stage I'm missing? Do you think there's anything else that there should be of note when it comes to this topic? I would love to hear it, and I would love to see what you think of it. But that is my opinion on whether or not the ninja are famous, or more specifically at what point of fame they truly were throughout the course of the show. And I really do stand by this, and I would love to think that we are at the point of the show where they are truly acknowledged for all the actions that they have done. But that is about it for today, you guys, and thank you very much for watching. Take care. Okay, bye!